Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm very excited to be joined again by Michael Vincent, my friend and business partner on the cyber fuels front, reducing emissions, reducing fuel, saving companies money. And then Michael is also president of Ocean Plastic Technologies USA, bringing monetary gains and reducing plastic waste. It's a winner. How are you doing, Michael?
Winner, chicken dinner. I'm doing great, man. I'm a little lighter.
Yeah, I noticed that. You know, we've been talking about your hair, and you went 5 months between haircuts. Is that right?
Just over 6, actually.
Just over 6 months. Wow.
Yeah, October, November, December, June. Yeah, just over 6 months. Yeah, it was long. It was easily 7 inches, almost 8 inches long.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I usually kept my hair like this, maybe a little bit shorter. And my wife and girls would always, and I'm one of those people that I can't tear myself away from the desk if I'm for more than 5 minutes. You know, if I go and take an extra 20 minutes or something to get my hair cut, then I feel like I've got to work an extra weekend or two to make up for that time. It's just like that. And so I will put off my haircut forever. And they used to love it when it would get long. And so, yeah, I decided, well, heck, I'm just going to stop cutting it and see how long I can go without cutting it. And they actually caved before I did. They begged to cut my hair. Yeah, they begged to cut my hair. And so I let them cut my hair this past weekend. I sat down in the back, gave them the clippers and a pair of scissors. And my 8-year-old and my 10-year-old girls cut my hair. Nobody else touched it. I think they did a pretty good job.
I do too, man. It looks good.
Yeah, they cut I don't know if you can see the line in the side of my head, though.
No, I can't see it from here.
Well, it's there, and it looks a bit ridiculous, but my 8-year-old was like, "Oh, you know how they put a line? Can I put a line in your hair?" So I showed her how to do it, and then she put a line through my hair. But yeah, whatever.
So you said we were talking a little bit offline. You said your 8 and 10-year-old girls are the ones that gave you the haircut, actually?
Yes, sir. Yeah, wow. Nobody else touched it. They did it, and when they said they were done, I've just left it. There, you can see the line right here. See this line right here?
Okay, I can barely see that. Yes. Yeah. Well, you're a brave man.
I appreciate that. So I wanted them to do it into a spike, but we couldn't get it right. I wanted to do a mohawk, but they couldn't get it right. So we just doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
I may just have them just keep shaving the sides and let this go, and just keep shaving the sides and let it go.
Well, get you a mohawk going.
Yeah. Why not? Maybe I'll go for the world record.
Hey, there we go. You know, for our main topic today, we're going to be talking about an article from CCJ that came out recently discussing particulate matter reduction and a proposal from the EPA.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've had the pleasure of podcasting with Jason Cannon, the chief editor at CCJ, and I found this article to be very interesting. But, you know, your hair experience got me to thinking. You know, I wonder what are some of the biggest hair records. And I found this article on Guinness World Record for the tallest Mohican / Mohawk spike for a male. So 4 feet 2 inches. You know, wow. That is a big mohawk.
That's pretty impressive. Is that more of a testament, though, to like the hair gel or the hair?
Yeah, the hair gel is, got to be supreme, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean,
that's more of like a, you know, extra super stiff LA Looks gel or something like that. I don't know if you've ever used gel in your hair, but like one of those ones where you like when you do it and then you wash your hands like 4 or 5 times and they're still got that little bit of stickage to it.
Right. It's kind of like glue, but it's a hair gel.
Yeah. It's like Karo syrup or something. Because that's impressive, man. That's a heck of a lot of hair to have stand straight up 4.2 feet.
Absolutely. You know, it made me wonder, how do you fit into your car or truck with a 4 foot 2 inch mohawk?
Yeah, well, it's got to be a convertible, right?
Gonna have to be through the sky roof, basically.
Well, yeah, you'd have to have the sunroof open.
Sunroof or convertible,
or going head first, right?
Oh man.
But if you're the type of person that's wearing something like that, then I don't, then that's your lifestyle, right? So you're probably riding like a motorcycle or a scooter or something like that.
With a hole in the top of the helmet.
Yeah, and you probably live downtown, and you probably, walking with your guitar and your amplifier to your next gig, and so, it really doesn't matter.
Right, right, exactly. You're
Yeah,
probably on an electric little scooter running around downtown
yeah,
for your next gig or something. I don't know.
yeah. Your band manager's got to figure out those logistics. You don't have to worry about that.
Right, exactly. I found that really interesting. But on to our main topic. So, on particulate matter reduction, according to Jason Cannon at CCJ, from January of this year, the EPA in December 2022 proposed tighter particulate matter / soot regulations, citing health concerns that the fine particulates penetrate deep into the lungs and can result in serious health effects that include asthma attacks, heart attacks, and premature death. I don't think anybody wants that.
No, I certainly don't.
No, I certainly do not either.
I certainly, but don't emission standards take care of that, or explain what's, why the designation of particulate matter over emissions? What's the difference that's going on here?
The thing is, there's all kinds of different emissions, right? There's nitrogen oxide, NOx.
All right.
There's sulfur oxides. That's
the good smelling stuff.
Right. Yes. Then there's the particulate matter 2.5 and the PM10, which is 2.5 is 2.5 microns. And they have a different effect than the PM10 particles, which get into different parts of the body and affect your health differently. So the two biggies are in terms of particulate matter.
Okay.
PM 2.5 and PM10 are kind of the standards out there for measuring. And that's what they're talking about here in this particular article. And the EPA, it says, in December 2022, updated emission standards for heavy-duty commercial vehicles for the 2027 model year, tightening tailpipe NOx limits to a level 80% plus below the current standard, a benchmark that, truck and engine OEMs nearly universally call challenging.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That is a big change to the equipment.
It is. So they have to start. Is it 80% directly at 2027? Because I thought I read or I understood, maybe I just understood it wrong, which is completely possible because I used to walk across the line haul yard on Hagman Road in Toledo, Ohio, which was the main switch point between Chicago Heights and Harrisburg, right? Going east, which is a huge corridor of freight. Because if you go into Harrisburg, that's where the 400, 500, 600 door LTL docks are in Harrisburg. And so between there and Chicago is a huge lane going right through there, right through Toledo. So it is nothing for me at 5 o'clock in the morning heading into the break bulk, which is what they used to call the distribution centers back then, break bulk. They have, 50, 60, 70, 100 trucks just fire up those their air starters all, within a minute or two of each other. Right. And you'd walk along and just, that sound, right?
Right.
And, man, you just smell that diesel and get ready to go sling some freight, right? Take a big old deep breath in your lungs and then suck on your coffee and your Red Bull and let's hit the dock.
Oh, man. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Probably wasn't the best thing for my lungs, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, it probably was not good for your lungs. Probably not. No, and one of the coolest things I've ever seen, I went on a frac spread running 14 2,500 horsepower engines all at one time, right? There's this thing called the crow's nest. You can stand up and away from the danger zone and look down, and seeing 14 2,500 horsepower generators humming at one time is something to see.
Yeah, no kidding. I bet that's unbelievable. I bet that's unbelievable. You know, it starts in 2020, but then it is like from 2027 through 2045 to make all this happen, right? I mean, it starts then and then it like phases in over the time or something like that, right? And it hits all the OEMs, which is interesting. And one of the things about it as well is that in in addition to that 80% reduction, or it's not an 80% reduction, it's just 80% lower, right? So I
Right.
mean, it's a heck of a reduction to
Yes.
take something 80% lower. Little different math, but still an incredible amount to go down. They have to make the useful life, right? 1.5 to 2.5 times, and yield emissions longer. The warranties have to be right. So the useful life of the engine has to be 1.5 to 2.5 times longer, right? And the emissions warranties have to be 2.8 to 4.5 times longer, right?
Right.
So that the guarantee that these new engines will age well and stay on the road longer.
Right.
I'm not sure I understand why that's there. Maybe to offset the costs, I think, because the EPA says they think the costs, and I don't know why they know this. They think the cost is like $2,300 more for a heavy duty diesel engine to reach these standards. I don't know. That would imply to me that they have some type of technology they're about to sell the OEMs to.
I think that's probably exactly it. It's going to
right?
be more equipment. We are familiar with the DPF, right? The diesel particulate filters that come in after the engine,
Right.
and the
Yeah.
DEF, which is diesel exhaust fluid used to burn off more of the emissions before it goes out the tailpipe.
Right.
Well, that costs more, obviously, for that equipment. If they're up in the game even further, I'm just assuming there's going to be more equipment at the after the combustion chamber. The cool thing with us and what we're doing, we're reducing emissions and fuel consumption at the combustion chamber itself, right? So helping companies save money and attacking it right there at the source. So we can certainly help move this needle forward, and that's what we're doing. But I'm just making an assumption. I don't see it here that there's got to be additional equipment involved, a little higher. And I know this from talking to fleet owners. The newer tier engines cost more than the older tier engines did.
Sure.
They just do, right?
Yeah, no, they certainly do. It's interesting because I mean, you know, they're obviously, this is in addition to the greenhouse gas issues that are there, right? And like you're saying, what we do at cyber fuels, et cetera, already addresses both the greenhouse gases and this, correct?
Right.
Because what they're talking about is the NOx. This is the stuff where you know, maybe the emission standards for certain areas are different than other areas because of the population, right? So like 72 million people live near enough to the highways and byways that are heavily trafficked by these heavy duty diesel trucks, the Class 8s in the United States, that they will be greatly impacted by this. It's those health standards. And I read it somewhere like the number of premature babies is like really significantly impacted. And like you said, premature death and lung disease, asthma, emphysema, yes, lung cancer, all that kind of stuff. That's the NOx stuff. That's not necessarily the GHG emissions that we're all excited about because it's getting too warm outside for the polar caps, et cetera, right? This is
right.
Totally
yeah, they're talking about
type of thing.
The ones in particular that affect the lungs, you know, and there was a study during COVID by Harvard, and they looked at the instances of COVID and COVID deaths and by county, and I think there was 300 counties or something like that. What they found was the areas that had the higher populations and more emissions had a higher level of instances of COVID and higher level of death rates from COVID, because those populations, their lungs are already compromised.
Yeah.
Because of the emissions they're living in, basically.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense, right? I mean, that was one of the warnings from the very beginning was that, you know, lung issues, heart disease, that type of diabetes, et cetera, sets you up because your immune system is already compromised. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, you've got so many people that are born with asthma and stuff. It's a generational issue now because it's been consumed by us unwillingly for so long. It's a pretty good thing. I mean, you know, we got to keep pushing for standards like this. I know that OIDA or OOIDA and certain things. They're concerned about the small driver and stuff like that. But like you pointed out, right, that expense can be offset, right? And like cyber fuels is doing that. Anybody can use cyber fuels, right? I mean, I can use it in my Tacoma, right?
That's right. Anybody running a combustion engine can use a product that reduces fuel consumption and reduces emissions also. It's not because of reduced fuel that we're talking about emissions. It burns the fuel more completely in the combustion chamber. So there's less emissions coming off and then less fuel consumed. So anybody running combustion engines in gasoline, diesel, or maritime, and actually now heating fuel oil, can benefit from this.
So it begs the question that's running through my mind, Andy, and it might be running through yours. I don't know. Maybe you asked the question and you already understand it and you just think it's one of those obvious ones, right? I mean, when we're in this industry, there's a lot of times where we assume that other people would know the obvious that we know is the obvious because we've been doing this for, 35 years, right?
Right.
But so like you're talking about the extra equipment, right? And you talk about the DEF, et cetera, right? And there's different ways to reduce emissions, right? It's the fuel before it even goes into the combustion chamber. It's the engine itself and how it combusts the molecules, and then also additives that can be put into the combustion chamber or in the fuel, like cyber fuels, right? And there's other ones that inject another type, whatever, propane or something like that. And then afterwards through the exhaust, right, we burn, and scrubbers, et cetera, like we talked up on chips. So does this require the actual technology of the engine to be 80% lower, or just that, hey, I'm selling this engine and here's how it can be 80% lower? In other words, buy this engine from Cummins and but you have to use this blend of fuels or whatever, and then it'll be 80% lower. Is it something along those lines?
It's an interesting question because you can use a biodiesel and reduce certain emissions, right?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, if you say, well, look, this will work, but you got to burn this fuel in it and it's readily available to everybody, does that not prove it? Because if you're sitting in a court of law and somebody says, no, it doesn't, we'll say, well, what's the difference between that and just regular diesel? I mean, it burns this and you can buy this with that diesel, lowers your cost and lowers your emissions. Problem solved.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the problem that we see with fleets and engines running various biodiesel blends is you normally lose fuel economy.
Right.
So how can you make up the difference? Because these companies can't spend $1 billion more on fuel just for that. So basically what we're doing is blended fuels and additives that combine to reduce emissions and reduce fuel consumption. So we can add this to a biodiesel. We can have a blended fuel just delivered with biodiesel plus additive, any number of ways to deliver it to the field. But basically, at the end of the day, reducing emissions right at combustion. And instead of trying to do scrubbers like the ocean vessels do, pushing the emissions into the water, which we don't think is a good idea.
Hiding it. You remember when your parents would tell you to clean up your room and you'd hide all your. That's what that
is. Right. Yeah, we've talked about the scrubbers on the maritime vessels. Just doesn't seem like a good option.
It doesn't. No. And there's some trade associations, like you said, and we've talked about like OOIDA, et cetera, that aren't so sure that this is such a great thing for business, right? And they're not saying, hey, screw everybody's lungs. They're just saying let's find some alternatives here. Let's figure this out together instead of mandating something on somebody that's going to crush this industry. There's got to be solutions where everybody benefits, right? Win-win-wins all over the place, right? And cyber fuels is certainly one of those, in my opinion. That's why I'm with you in doing this type of stuff. The OEMs, though, although they said it was challenging, not reporting was 100% correct. In that same report, the quotes are, it's challenging, but we're in favor of this. I mean, like across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Saying
that this is needed and we're totally on board with this. Now, I don't know that every one of them is like agrees politically so that they're just going to blow smoke to keep people happy. It sounds like legitimately they want this to happen, right? Like it's a good thing that this is happening. Not that challenge. I mean, everybody enjoys a good challenge, right? I think it's more they support this kind of stuff because they're getting that demand from customers.
Yeah.
But like Daimler, it's different if Daimler goes out and develops this engine that drops the NOx and particulate matters down 80% better than it used to, right? It's different for them to just do that than it is for everybody else to do it from a monetary and business sense, right? It's
Right.
more,
You can imagine all of the research and development involved.
yeah.
And then setting up new manufacturing lines and everything else. You almost have to have a mandate to move the tier of the engine forward, or you, like you said, they can't afford to make that kind of an investment, hoping that 10% of the big fleets out there that are very green are coming on, right? It almost has to be a mandate for them to do it, really.
Yeah, they're going to spend all that money, and then they're going to have to spend all of that sales and marketing and promotional money and all that kind of stuff on a bet that more than just this one or two customers is going to demand this, right?
Right.
And that they're not going to just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go buy this other engine or this other vehicle because it's good enough for the EPA and it saves me, 10 grand, 100 grand, whatever it happens to be on the initial note. Right. So this is very much a positive for the OEMs, I would think, whether it's more, $2,300 or $50,000, not from a sense that they're like, yeah, we get to really, really get into your pocketbooks. Right. I think it's more of okay, we had to invest in this stuff anyways, but now the whole industry has to, so it's less of a risky capital investment.
Right. It's much, much less of a risk on their part. Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, who knows what the end result are on the actual total cost of ownership, because that's drawn out over 8, 10, 15 years, but
it is.
They're basically saying we're on board with this. As long as the industry is moving that way, we can't go out on a limb by ourselves and hope that we have enough customers come on, because there's just too much R&D and manufacturing changes and everything to doing that. I mean, that's a big challenge.
And I would expect that there's a little bit of motivation right now for the EPA to do this, and the administration. I mean, no, there's no doubt about it. The Biden administration is pushing this type of stuff, and not that that's good or bad or indifferent, but there would be a motivation right now to do this because we need to. I think I know at least two people right now watching this, which is you and I. And that agree that we need to do this, right? And there's plenty others that we need to reduce emissions, et cetera, right?
Right.
In a lean time in trucking, unless you're motivated to, for whatever the motivation is, you're not going to go out on a limb and invest capital for something that doesn't have to be done. And so we could lose a year to a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Who knows how long? The freight recession can last a year or two. Right. And if the money's not there for that extra capital investment to move this forward, progress stops unless somebody steps in like the EPA and says, nope, we got to keep moving forward. And here's the mandate. Right.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. You almost have to have that, really, in order for the industry to change. I mean, really, because piecemealing it here and there, it just doesn't move the needle enough. There's, of course, we're hearing about shippers basically saying, I want to know what your engine outputs in terms of emissions are. Sure. Are you running dirty? Are you on tier 3? Are you on tier 4 engines or tier 3? Do you have particulate filters? They want to know this stuff because they've got these green initiatives that have been publicly announced, right? And they've got to figure out a way to move this forward. And this kind of a mandate certainly does move everything forward. So regardless of wherever you're at on the political spectrum, if you're going to move an entire industry forward that has 3.9 million engines on the road every week, you're going to have to say, okay, here's some standards to get us over here, basically, So that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and it needs to happen. It needs to happen in concert with other industries, et cetera, because exactly what you're saying, there's other industries that have nothing to do with transportation or trucking, other than it's part of their scope 3, right? Impacts, right? Because their products get moved. And those people are coming under the gun and it's not maybe, they are requesting and demanding specific answers to your green initiatives. As a trucking company, it doesn't matter if you're an intermediary or if you're an asset-based trucker. You have to have these answers. Otherwise, you are not going to be considered for specific bids. You're just not.
Right. Absolutely.
It's getting more and more. I mean, you can talk to anybody. Matt McClellan at Covenant will tell you that. It's on almost every bid now. You have to have answers, and not just answer it. You can't just say, "Yeah, I'm against emissions and I'm against human trafficking." You have to prove that you're doing these things. There has to be documented proof that is happening. Right?
Absolutely. No, you're right. And on that front, I worked for a very large technology company in contract negotiations. And part of the bid was you got to prove that you're not using child labor.
Yeah.
On your equipment, right?
Yeah.
A lot of it coming from overseas.
Yeah.
And not just, no, we don't do that. No, I need proof and evidence that you're a part. And there was a standard applied to the entire industry of electronics that you will not, if you're going to do this, you're going to be audited, you're going to be watched, and you're going to not use child labor in building your electronics. I mean, that's just, if you're going to be a part of this standard, you're going to have to do that. So
yeah, and it goes deep, right? So you have to be able to verify your supply chain all the way through to the raw materials, right? Because I remember just a couple of years ago, the FBI or it was FBI or I forget who issues these mandates, but they can stop international invoice shipments, right? Based on suspicion, it's through the customs, right? But based on suspicions of the origin of certain things. And so like if you're importing these Cambridge shirts, right? And they say, well, wait a minute, there's all these orders of cotton fibers that are coming from this specific region in China that uses unfair labor practices, and they've migrated across into Cambodia and into your textile mills. My shirts, millions of them may be sequestered, and I don't get them. That's it. It's canceled. Boom. I'm out.
Right.
And that type of data is coming through to where, okay, you're using this carrier. Well, this carrier is not green because of their emissions or this trucking company isn't green because all of the plastic parts in their trucks are virgin plastics and they don't have enough recycled content. That data is there and can be done through transparency.
Absolutely. And I've seen in the diamond industry, diamonds, there's a standard for, and in the coffee industry, fair practices on labor and certain emissions things as well, but mainly on those fair practices in labor, right? No slave labor, child labor. That's not going to work. So yeah.
Just one word to add to that: cobalt.
Yes.
Yeah. The lower rungs of that supply chain are not pretty.
Right. Yeah. I've heard the same about lithium. Right.
Yeah. Not good.
Got some serious issues to resolve.
So the best thing to do is get some stepping stones, get involved, do the right thing. There's things out there that can be done that actually reduce money and put you on the right path with your emissions and are documented. You can document them, right? You can get certified testing done, et cetera, so that you can win those bids and you can do something good about the environment and can actually improve your bottom line at the same time.
Absolutely. Yep. Lab tested, field tested, and you can do your own tests, right? So we're in support of all of those things and working to move the industry forward. So absolutely.
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff.
Well, Michael,
I got to start growing my hair out again, dude. I got things to do. I got to go get some tonic or something to get my hair growing
again. Well, it's looking good. They did a good job. Tell your daughters, very nice.
I will let them know.
All right.
Thanks, brother.
You're welcome. All right, man. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for joining, everybody, and we will see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Peace and love.